you.
Good evening and welcome to another edition of Money Talk with Melanie. I'm your business diva, Melanie Collette, broadcasting live via SHR Media from beautiful Cape May, New Jersey. It is beautiful, but it is freezing here in Cape May, New Jersey. And welcome everybody to the Facey chat who are piling in. Welcome. I hope everyone had a fantastic Thanksgiving Turkey Day yesterday. It's just, the holidays are good for the memes, if nothing else. Am I right? I'm excited today because my guests are Christine Perakis, Esquire. She's going to talk to us about how to create a record-breaking year for our business in 2019. So I'm looking forward to that conversation. And then in hour two, we're going to speak with Dr. Rod Wallace, or he goes by Rod Wallace, Ph.D., regarding drowning in our potential as an American society. How can we survive digital technology? But who really wants to? I'm just kidding. Doug, this is I'm a recovering techie, but not like willing to recover. I want to say hi to Doug and Richard and Jonathan and David in the Facey chat. Hey, what's shaking, guys? I missed you guys. I was not on the air last week and my voice is still like tiny bit scratchy. I was getting over a sinus infection and I got tickets to Hall Notes. Let's be honest. Free ticket to Hall Notes like fell on my lap. And was I really not going? Yes, I was going. So that and my voice was not up to par, and you can still hear, like, I was afraid that if I talked for a long period of time, and those of you who are used to hearing my voice can probably hear that it's just not quite as strong as it usually is. But it is here, and to my students, chagrin. My voice is not as strong as it usually is, but welcome. I missed you guys. I was like, I can't wait to talk with my audience today. I'm so excited. And I have two really good guests. That summit that I went to, that I was invited to a few weeks ago, maybe a month ago, man, I met so many great people. And actually, Christine Perakis, Esquire, and Rod Wallace, Ph.D., are two of the people that I met, two of the great people that I met at the National Publicity Summit in Manhattan. Hey, Maurice Delk, how are you? You behaving yourself, young man? Staying out of Facey jail? For those of you in SHR Media, in SHR Media Land, or you're listening to this as a podcast, if you are missing this live, I always stream the show live on Facebook. And that way my listeners get to ask my guests questions, which is cool, and interact with me if they like. Hello, Betty. How are you? It's still a wonderful voice, Doug. Aw, Doug's got to be one of my biggest fans, I'll tell you. He keeps my self-esteem right in there. Hey, Louisiana. How you doing, Betty? And Trey, hello. Absence must make the heart grow fonder. Because I'll tell you, the Facey chat is just filling up. I'm so excited to see you guys. But yeah, my voice is kind of a mess. And it was election season was not too long ago, and I was really super busy. And now, hey, Chad. And now, of course, it's holiday season. So everyone's, so it's everyone who was working on elections and all that stuff. Now we're all celebrating our wins and licking our wounds from our losses. But not my county, because the county where I ran the call center killed. Just saying. Like, we wiped the floor with our opponent. But that's another stuff. Not that matters, but it really does. Anyway, today is money-wise. Today is Black Friday. Take offense to that. Very offended. I'm kidding. I don't take it. I don't. But today is African American Friday, or Black. Actually, doesn't stand for that at all. It's just so I'm just really stealing jokes from the Facebook posts for the last 2 days. That's really what I'm doing. But it is Black Friday, and Cyber Monday is coming right upon us this coming Monday. The two biggest shopping days of the year. They're considered crucial for, the retail industry. Every single year is considered crucial. And of course, every year reporters and the media say this year is more crucial than any other year, and this year is no different. Now, according to Adobe Analytics, we've already spent $1.7 billion. By 5 p.m. on Thanksgiving Day, we had already spent $1.75 billion. That's a 28% bump from last year. So that's good stuff for the economy, even though the stock market is kind of ugly and shaky right now. But also, you have to remember about the stock market that we're due for a correction, like long overdue, cyclically, and even as far as the economy is concerned, how long we've been going through an uptick. So I would relax a little bit. I hate to sound like the typical financial consultant, but I'm going to say what we typical financial consultants say, which is, it's long-term investing. Don't check your statement every 5 minutes. It's going to make yourself crazy. And, keep an eye out. Apple apparently didn't do well at all today, but it's also cell phone season. Lots of people are getting new cell phones. I'm trying to be a good girl and not do this. I used to be. Now, those of you guys who know me know I'm really techie. I'm into the technology. I teach technology on a collegiate and secondary level, and plus I just love it. But my excuse to buy new technology is because I teach it. But I'm still on the iPhone 7, and of course, it's carrying a dinosaur. It's a relic. I mean, I'm a computer professor. So how can I be carrying this iPhone 7? So I might cruise by the store this weekend. Maybe. But cell phone, I think Apple's probably going to come back. But a lot of people are also realizing, too, I think, as far as the tech industry is concerned, that, not much changes from one model to the other. From an Apple perspective, since Steve Jobs died, nothing spectacular really happens with your phone to where you're like, let me spend another couple $100 on a new one. At least not for me. And maybe I'm just getting old. And Doug Posson at Facey Chat is right. You got to ride the roller coaster. It's not fun, but you do have to ride the roller coaster. If your portfolio is continuing to go up and up and up and up and up and up and up, you're in Bernie Madoff territory, for years on end. I'm just saying. There's supposed to be dips. There's supposed to be corrections. So everybody breathe. It's going to be okay. It's going to be cool. Just chill. Now, Walmart, you should know this, Walmart, Target, and Best Buy are modifying their gift card programs. They're trying to lessen fraud over this holiday season. Their attorney, this is really nice, their attorneys announced this. The Attorney General, actually, of New York and Pennsylvania announced this. This is a result of a year-long initiative to hinder fraudulent card use. People are just not afraid to go to jail, apparently. Aside from the moral reasons not to do this, I'm not trying to do time. What about McDonald's French fries? You get locked up, no McDonald's French fries. That's not incentive enough not to lead a life of crime? It is for me. I'm just saying. But I digress. The changes include lessening single transaction purchase limits and curbing the amount that can be loaded onto the cards. Also banning use of store-branded gift cards to purchase other gift cards. Well, that's kind of a duh kind of thing. Why would you be allowed to do that? I don't know. I think that's kind of a... All right. So anyway, I've been going for 2 weeks, which means I have 2 weeks worth of Ron Edwards notebooks, one this hour and one the next hour. You're listening to Money Talk with Melanie. My hour one guest is Christine Perakis, Esquire. She's going to talk to us about creating record-breaking year for your business in 2019. And up next is a brand new, actually it's last week's Ron Edwards. No, it's the brand new Ron Edwards notebook coming right up.
As we approach Thanksgiving and the Christmas season, both of which have deep Christian roots, it is a bit disheartening to witness yet another episode of leftist bigotry against good works. Hello, I'm Ron Edwards. On today's page from the Edwards Notebook, community activists and leftist city council members in Pittsburgh have signed a letter calling for Chick-fil-A to be booted out as sponsor of the annual Pittsburgh Kids Marathon because of CEO Dan Cathy's Christian beliefs that include marriage between a man and a woman and that LGBTQIA choices don't align with the Word of God. Additionally, Pittsburgh government school officials have threatened to join the boycott unless Chick-fil-A is forced to meet their demands and walk away. despite the fact that not one individual from Chick-fil-A has ever uttered a word against anyone or their lifestyle choices. The bigoted leftists of Pittsburgh are so sensitive they can't stomach a Christian organization doing good works in the community. My, how times have changed. Well, don't miss the Ron Edwards Experience worldwide on AmericaMatters.us Fridays at 1 p.m. Pacific, 4 p.m. Eastern, Saturdays at 6 p.m. Mountain, 8 p.m. Eastern on Utah's KYAH 540 a.m. and Sunday midnights on the Talk America Radio Network. I'm Ron Edwards.
Ron Edwards, the new voice of America.
Sponsored by the Tri-County Liberty Coalition.
Making a living can be tough these days with so many jobs going overseas. If you love numbers and puzzles and want job security, you can become a tax specialist with an amazing 6-month tax course from Tax Mama. Operate your own tax practice locally or anywhere in the world where there are American taxpayers. It's a great way to write off your trips to visit family for months at a time. Everything you need to pass the IRS 3 special enrollment examinations is included in this course. Visit irsexams.school, and if you need more than 6 months, that's okay. Take your time. You're in the course until you pass the exams or until you unsubscribe and reject Tax Mama's emails.
Right now, you can get the credit you deserve. Just visit MrCreditRepair.biz. Let their expert credit repair specialist remove late payments, charge-offs, collections, even old bankruptcies fast and easy. That's MrCreditRepair.biz. Why go anyplace else? Increase your credit score today. At Mr. Credit, you always get a quality service, all at our everyday discounted price. Stop getting turned down for cars, credit cards, or even new homes. Visit MrCreditRepair.biz today. That's MrCreditRepair.biz. Your credit repair is our #1 priority.
Welcome back. You're listening to Money Talk with Melanie. I'm your business diva, Melanie Collette, coming to you live via SHR Media. And my first hour guest today is Christine Perakis, Esquire. She's going to talk to us today about creating record-breaking sales year for 2019. Very excited to talk to her. Met her about a month ago in Manhattan at the National Publicity Summit. Very excited to speak to her this evening. And without further ado, Ms. Christine Perakis, how are you?
Hey, I'm great, and welcome to everybody who's listening. Thank you so much for having me on the show today, Melanie.
We're
all waking up from a really good Thanksgiving, I hope.
Oh, yes. Thanksgiving was very good. We actually turned it into a slumber party, and I literally live 5 minutes away from where I spent Thanksgiving.
So you could roll out of bed, roll into the table, and roll back to bed when it was over.
Pretty much. It was very nice. I hope you did as well. Listen, before we move on to the meat of the conversation, please tell the audience about your background.
Okay, well, professionally, I've been a lawyer, a business advisor, a C-suite executive, and an entrepreneur in 10 businesses that I've started, grown, and expanded on my own and with partners. So I'm just like most of the people on this in this audience, our listeners, that I've started businesses, I've grown businesses, and I've experienced every kind of business challenge. I've even been a professional rescuer on the mountains as a certified mountain rescuer, as an EMT, and a licensed 100-ton boat captain. So, and the businesses, boats, and people are my thing. And there I was, just over a year ago, alone in my home in the Caribbean, in the British Virgin Islands, island of Tortola, when the most powerful storm ever to hit the Atlantic Basin came through, blew the roof off my house, left me buried alive, trapped in a wind coffin with monster winds howling outside, and no one was coming, which is the great irony when you're a professional rescuer, always taking care of other people, and finding that I personally wasn't able to get rescued. I didn't have anybody coming. I had to become what I call my own storm warrior. And in that experience of total helplessness and uncertainty about whether I was going to come out of this, I really redoubled my commitment to being of service, to making this experience purposeful. And so I'm committed to showing people how they can become their own storm warrior And even if you haven't been in a natural disaster of any kind, and let's face it, most of us haven't, thank God, but we've all been stuck in our businesses. We've been worrying about cash flow, whether personally or professionally. Who doesn't relate to having to pool credit cards together to make a purchase, or, you know, having a credit line that just disappears and you don't know where the money's coming from, or being in such a situation with your own personal finances you can't make the mortgage payment. I've experienced all of that.
Wow.
Go ahead.
No, I was going to say, indeed, and it happens all the time. And I think, which is kind of, you know, when you hear about how people are like, oh, you know, you talk about the wealthy and this, that, and the other, and business owners having all this money, people have no idea the struggle of entrepreneurs and what it takes to maintain a business.
No, Elon Musk says it's like starting a business. Starting a business is like staring into the abyss while eating glass.
Yes.
It can feel just like that, right? When you're in a business growing and trying to have enough cash, have enough support, have enough resources to get, you know, more of what you wanted to do, which is hopefully financial freedom, right?
Indeed. And then sometimes even when it's super successful, that can make it even worse, because then you're kind of trying to play catch up. It's like it's a good thing and a bad thing, right?
I've been there too, right? My last business enterprise, we started as a 100% equity funded startup and grew to a $10 million a year business in 4 years. And I was in the C-suite as the COO and general counsel for the company. And we had this huge amount of success. It grew our team to 150 people, and we had a $1 million payroll. And I can't tell you how many weeks I was in a nail-biting situation hoping that we were going to make payroll.
Exactly.
Growth can be a Category 5 level experience. That's what I call it when you're starting a business or growing a business, where it just feels like literally life-threatening.
Right.
Life of the business, the life of the individuals.
Exactly, because whenever you grow, even though growth is good, it takes capital to maintain that. You want to continue to grow. You want to continue to work on that level. It's really, it can be a daunting task, particularly if not handled correctly. You know, so
right.
It can really be tough. So you've handled real life catastrophes, and you've also handled business catastrophes. But today we're going to focus on how we can create a record-breaking year for 2019. So we're focused on a little bit of planning. We're sitting here now in November, staring down the barrel, so to speak, of December, and thinking about, okay, how are we going to set up our business so that we can start killing it in 2019? And what are your suggestions?
So this is the perfect time to be talking about this, because we've got a year ahead of us. We've got what's most of the last quarter left to make some really serious inroads into having a record-breaking year. And I want to talk today about the 3 most critical, fundamental things we can do, that if we can do immediately, things that we can develop as habits, and things that we can take action on over the next couple of weeks that are going to separate our listeners and us as business owners from all the competition out there.
I love it.
So let's start with doing what I call turning up the thermostat. We want to turn any challenges we're experiencing right now into opportunities and really understand our tolerance for adversity. So it's a thing called a self-concept. We all have self-esteem, self-image, and a self-concept. And the most important of these is the self-concept, because it's based on how you were loved, how you were rewarded, how you were criticized as a child. And we have a self-concept about everything. How much money we have, how much we weigh, how satisfied we expect to be in our life. So when we go through an experience and we look back on our lives, everything stays within 10% of what is our self-concept. So if you set the thermostat, let's say at 60, and you're never going to get outside of 10% of 60, you're never going to experience those beautiful, warm summer days in the Caribbean like I've been able to create, because that's where you're comfortable. That's what's familiar. And you haven't learned the techniques to train yourself out of keeping that thermostat where it's comfortable and familiar, which might be a little bit uncomfortable in how your results are, what your money show, what your success is. So, since we all know, go ahead.
No. I was thinking about what you were saying, and I heard a statistic, and it was a sales/physical statistic. But what they were saying is, whenever you're ready to give up on whatever level that applies, you have about 30% left to go. Like wherever
that's 3 feet from gold, right? Napoleon Hill.
Exactly. You have about 30% left. So whenever you're thinking, okay, I'm ready to stop, I need to give up now, keep going. Like give 30% more because you actually have it. And I was like, whoa, that's deep.
It's a really hard thing to do because that's when most entrepreneurs give up, like you said, 3 feet from where they are. It comes from an old story about a miner in gold rush days where he just, spent all this time digging, he never found gold, finally gave up and sold his plot. And 3 feet later, they found the strike of gold that they were looking for. And that's what we have to understand is, what are we telling ourselves about what we have right now? It's not working, we don't have enough, it's not comfortable, and this is what I'm used to, it never works out when I try anything, everything I've done isn't working. These are the thoughts we tell ourselves, and we usually have our thoughts as a direct result of what we're seeing in our bank accounts or in our profitability, if it's business or mortgages or our cash flow. We let the results tell us how to think and feel. But if we flip that switch and we start training our thoughts and our feelings, which are a result of what we're experiencing around us, and that tells us how to feel about it, then we can have actions that actually are dictated by our thoughts, which then lead to success. And it becomes, we're the little engine that could. Instead of, wow, we didn't have a good month last month, or this year didn't meet our financial goals, and it really sucks going into 2019, not knowing where to go from here. Not having something that I can control, and really our thoughts are the only thing we can control. And the language that we use to talk about it.
That is true. And we tell ourselves all kinds of things that are not true. I mean, all the time. Right? And here's the thing. Here's the thing that kills me about the fact that we do that. We say it to ourselves as if it's gospel, although time and time again, it has not been gospel. It has proved us wrong, and we still believe it.
Exactly.
Exactly. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I had clients who've gotten stuck. They're in a partnership that is not working for them. It's not aligned, and it's becoming a liability, and they can't get away from it, and they end up feeling stuck in that situation, just like we've all been in our businesses and in our lives. And by changing what we're comfortable with, like I don't want to have confrontation, I don't want to have the uncomfortable discussion with this person, I don't want to ask it to be different. When you flip that switch, all of a sudden the partnership realigns, whether they stay or go. New partnerships come in, joint ventures, cash flow. The business tripled for my client just by making some changes in what he was willing to tolerate.
Wow. Now you're saying something there when you say that, changing what you're willing to tolerate. I'm just sitting and absorbing that because I think that applies not just in business. Like, I feel like that applies.
Absolutely.
That applies in a whole lot of places.
Right?
Yeah.
Oh, this person is treating me this way. I don't feel good in this relationship. He's not giving me what I want, or she's not giving me what I want. And instead of, what do I ask for? What do I need? What do I stand for? What am I giving to be able to get back? Who am I being in this situation? What can I do? And we can just flip a switch, literally catch ourselves in what we say about a situation and change the entire energy, tenor, emotions in the room. And so flatten it out.
And so you would say that that's the first thing we do is check our thermostat, see where we are, see if we need to adjust our tolerances for adversity, because if you're non-confrontational in a business, that's kind of hard. And I think I probably am one of those people. I don't like confrontation at all. Like,
Sure.
now there are some people who are going to say not based on your social media, but I don't like, but that's different. I don't like confrontation in my personal life. Social media
Well,
is
people
different.
closest to you, right? Your inner circle.
Right. Like in my inner circle, I do not like drama. I do not like it in my personal life at all. Now, Mike Fitzpatrick, who actually will be on the show, I think the week after, either next week or the week after, he's our cybersecurity expert. He's in the Facey chat, and he says applies to security, and most CEOs aren't doing enough to protect their businesses and financial well-being for ownership, employees, and shareholders. And actually, that's what we're going to talk about when he's on the show. I'm going to check my calendar and see when he's going to be on the show. It's soon, but that is very true. That's a very good point. On the 30th, he's going to be on the show. But that's a very good point. What he brings up, because talk about a source of contention. How secure your business is, and the other thing, protecting employees, because who of us doesn't, check our email at work every now and then? I think we probably all do check our personal email at work, and if you check your personal email at work and there are security issues, you could possibly have security issues, particularly if you have your own computer, hooked up to your business's Wi-Fi. So I think, and those, when somebody like Mike goes into a business and says, hey, you need to change this, that, or the other, I would imagine that's there's going to be some conflict there.
Right?
Especially since it's go ahead, I'm sorry.
Well, let's talk about a second game-changing shift that we can make, and something that we can do more immediately, because this other piece is going to take some habits to be developed, right?
Right.
And we got to start getting vigilant. But this next piece is about becoming your own weather forecaster, right? Like a weatherman. And it's being able to create an actionable, visionary framework. And I guarantee you, most businesses don't do this. I've started businesses without a business plan. I've started businesses with no idea who we were and what we stood for. And I've helped others and started other businesses where we've gotten crystal clear about it and had extraordinary results. So your first job as a business owner is to keep your eye on the trends, right? That's the forecasting part. What's happening in the industry, with your competitors, with your internal team, with your customers. What's changing about all of that? Because it is constantly changing. And then it's getting really clear about who you are and why you do what you do. Because our values are unchanging. Our core values of who we are and why we do, and our core purpose for being is also unchanging. And if our commitment is to be crystal clear about it and to live by those things and to only align ourselves with people who share those and to always be committed no matter what the market's telling us. So if the market isn't saying, yeah, we don't want, what you're selling, but what you're selling is central to who you are, then you find a new market. Or you find new customers that want what you have because they're out there. And so what I like to tell people is that we develop a core ideology. When we have that, we're no longer complacent, and we live by those values, and then we can set goals around our values. You've probably heard of SMART goals, right?
Yes.
Melanie,
Yep.
Specific, measurable, aligned,
Yes.
realistic, reasonable, and time-based.
Yes.
Right, but the thing in the middle there, aligned,
Yes.
is something that gets forgotten about. But it's a really deep exercise to go into. That we understand specific and measurable. That's not hard to do.
Right.
I want to weigh 10 pounds less, or I want to be this much, I want to weigh this much by this date, and we're all talking after the first of the year, right?
Of course.
And then it has to be realistic. I'm not going to lose 50 pounds in 2 weeks, and I know the time that's going to happen, but what really matters is, am I going to starve myself to do it? Am I going to hurt people in the process? Am I going to piss off everyone around me because I'm not eating? We're not doing things in a healthy way that's really good self-care to lose that weight. And it's the same in business. What are we going to do? Who do we step on? What values do we cast aside? Who do we step over or on to get where we want to go? And that's outside of our value system. If we don't have a clear, stated, communicated core value system, core ideology, which includes values and purpose, and then we don't have a team around us that's aligned with that, there's no way we can get where we want to go.
No, that makes a whole lot of sense. And it to me, it helps a lot in decision making, kind of knowing where your lines are, because you have a baseline to work from. You're like, okay, right. Some people, whether or not something's legal, doesn't have a bearing on whether or not they do it. For me, it does. So, is it legal?
Yeah, absolutely.
Let me find out.
But it's even deeper. There's a purpose for why you're on speaking about your principles every day, right? That's important to you, and that's what you live by. It is.
And that is important to know. But, people have an aversion, one, to even mapping that out, verbalizing it, putting it down on paper, incorporating it into their business in any real way, because it feels too much like work, and it can be tedious. And I think, that the hardest part about the business is, soon someone says business plan, people are like, what? I have to do a business plan? You mean I have to? But yeah, you plan everything else that you have to do. You don't take a trip without planning what direction you're going to go in. So you should have some kind of plan. How are you going to?
Well, that's what I love to do with my clients, because, when you say business plan, right, I start falling asleep, right? We think about, it's 50 pages, it's a bunch of writing, it's homework, who wants to do homework? We hate it. And even if we did actually write a business plan, we're going to shove it in a drawer as soon as we hit the ground running, because it's not keeping up with us.
No, it's going to change.
Right, there's nothing in it that's actionable. And so when I work on this with my clients, we're working together to create an actionable visionary framework. So we might do a vision statement, but it's going to have action. This is the difference between writing a mission statement and going on a mission. And so our business plans are one page. It's a one-page strategic business plan that maps out an entire trajectory to our big, hairy, audacious goals 25 years from now, that are so big and they scare us a little, right? We have a 50 to 75% chance of success, but we're willing to stretch and we're willing to commit to changing the world in this way. And that's how we get excitement and build life around a business plan. That's something we can get behind, because it can be changed, it can be revisited, and it's got an entire roadmap built into it that has the long term, the medium, the short, and the immediate. And that's what really turns me on.
For sure. And you have to be willing to be that flexible with it, is the thing. Right. You really do. Particularly go ahead, I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, please.
No, I was going to say, particularly...
We're so excited about this stuff, aren't we?
Yeah. Particularly as technology changes and the market changes and things like that, you have to be, really flexible no matter what it is that you're into, and keep on top of that stuff, which can be really difficult. We are up against a break. That's the only other reason why I interrupted you, because I wanted to get the opportunity to say that because we're up against the break at 5:40. This is a really good conversation. I'm very excited to have Christine Perakis, Esquire, on. She's talking to us about how we can create a record-breaking year next year in 2019 with our businesses, our small, medium-sized businesses, all of us that have businesses and are entrepreneurs. I want you to listen carefully to what she has to say. We're going to take a quick break. Thank you for all of those who have joined us. And by the way, I have a brand new sponsor whose ad is not done yet. I actually am voicing the ad for them, so it's taking a little bit longer to do it than it usually does. But send out cards. Sendoutcards.com. I don't want to say this wrong. I probably am saying it incorrectly, so let me make sure that I say this right before he kills me. But it's John Campbell Biz, and I'm going to put the link in the Facey chat for you guys. But he is a brand new, here we go. He's a brand new, spanking brand new sponsor, and I am very, very, very excited to have him on, and his ad is going to be done very shortly. We'll be back. You're listening to Money Talk with Melanie. I'm your business diva, Melanie Collette. We'll be back in a few minutes. Welcome to this week's Money Talk Minute. I'm your business diva, Melanie Collette. This week's Money Talk Minute asks the question, what's a reverse mortgage? A reverse mortgage permits homeowners that are age 62 and older to convert their home equity into cash without paying taxes or without paying any monthly payments. Reverse mortgages are used the way typical mortgage loans are used to pay off debt, for college, education, and things like that, or for some home improvements. There are two types of reverse home mortgages. You have the adjustable home mortgages, which have 5 different types of payment options, and then you have the fixed reverse home mortgages that have lump sum payments. Eligibility for reverse home mortgages includes but are not limited to making sure that your home is owned completely outright, making sure that you don't have any outstanding federal debt, and of course you have to be 62 or older. On the upside, reverse mortgages can free up some extra cash. On the downside, reverse home mortgages have lots and lots of extra fees, so exercise caution. And that's this week's Money Talk Minute. I'm your business diva, Melanie Collette. Remember, Money Talk with Melanie airs every Friday on SHR Media and streaming live on Facebook at 5 p.m. East, 2 p.m. West, and 4 p.m. Mountain Time.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
Hey, this is Michael Wright.
And I'm Shannon Wright.
Join us for The Right Way with Shannon and Mike, Monday through Thursday from 7 to 9 a.m. right here on SHR Media.
Why are they joining us?
For fun things like sports, politics,
Oh, maybe some news and entertainment?
and all kinds of other things.
Money and recipes and events? All kinds of stuff.
Yeah, so join us Monday through Thursday, 7 to 9 a.m. here on SHRmedia.com.
From a public locker inside a dilapidated Long Island rail station comes a show designed to piss off liberals using truth, facts, and ridicule. The Lid Radio Show, featuring the conservative voice from the People's Republic of New York, the Lid himself, Jeff Dunitz. Tune in every Wednesday at 2 p.m. Eastern, 11 a.m. Pacific on the SHR Media Network. Go to shrmedia.com. At Lid Radio, we fight for the truth, justice, and a good kosher T-bone. If you don't listen, Hillary Clinton might sneak into your bedroom in her housecoat late at night and blame you for her election loss. It's the Lid Radio Show with Jeff Dunitz. Girls, Carry Girl Gear is here. More and more women every day are concealed carrying, participating in competitive shooting, and getting firearms training. It's not a boys' club anymore, and we don't have to shop in their stores anymore either. Finally, a cool and unique clothing line just for women. Dope tees and hats for the patriotic concealed carry and 2A girl. So what are you waiting for? Go check out carrygirlgear.com today.
Welcome back. You're listening to Money Talk with Melanie. I'm your business diva, Melanie Collette. Our first hour guest today is Christine Perakis, Esquire. She's talking to us about how to create a record-breaking year in your business in 2019. Very excited to talk to her. Some very good tips that she is informing our guests about today, our audience about today. So I'm excited to have her on the show to talk to us. So we were talking about Actually, I'm trying to recall what we were talking. I actually wanted to ask you a question before we left. I thought of this question. Are there any mistakes, common mistakes, that people make in their business that you would say you definitely want to avoid for 2019?
Well, there's, thousands, right? Let's say, starting from the beginning. made, right?
Right.
And I'm sure I've made them all. So starting without a real strategic roadmap for your business, right? Or going into an expansion without a strategic roadmap, which is something that I'm offering to your audience to be able to call me and have a 10x your business call where you come in and learn about how to outpace your competition and leave with a strategic roadmap for the next, 6 months of your year, how to create that. So people, go in victimized before they even get started. So that's a really important mistake we make. Another one is a lack of communication, where people don't spend the time to communicate what their core values are, why we're here in business, why this is so important to you, and really discern so you find out who's on board with you. Because some people are there just for the paycheck and they don't care about the mission that you're on. But who is, are those important functions that they're serving? Are they going to be able to serve the business? So not knowing who you are and where you're going and why is critical mistake people make.
So you do think that, I've always wondered about that with employers, and I guess having my own business, but I'm mostly a solo act. I have some partners and people on my team that I use on a project basis, but for the most part, I'm a solo act. And whenever I've been asked on an interview or whatever, they ask you like how invested you are in that particular area of business or that particular industry. I always kind of thought that question was kind of lame because most people are just there because they want a job. But what you're saying,
right.
But what I hear you saying is that we really do need as entrepreneurs to make sure that the people we hire and the people that we work with are really invested in whatever industry it is that we're in.
Well, because you're not there for a job, right? A job would be way easier than doing what we do.
Yes.
Getting a paycheck and going home at night, not having a constant worry, not constant struggle, financial ease and certainty, all that stuff would be so much easier than what we do, which is constantly striving, constantly trying to contribute. So when you have that choice to be made, you have to know why, so you can say to people, are you on board with this?
That's very true. That's an excellent point. And I understood, I knew why they asked the question. Like, I get it. But I always thought to myself, seriously, like, has this person ever, like, gone for a job before? Why do you think I'm here?
It's like, you're not there for the industry or to talk about money. You're there to change the world in the way that it's important to you.
True.
And people, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, but the whole idea, like Walt Disney formed his company to make people happy. The whole point of Disney's work in the world in his lifetime was to make people happy. It had nothing to do with movies and amusement parks and merchandise and all that stuff. So how we make people happy is what became the business of Disney. And people who want to get on board with that are going to be part of it. They're very particular about who they hire and who they bring on board, right? There's rules. It's very structured.
It is.
So they work really hard for that.
And doing...
But, the mission...
You're right. And the mission and the purpose, if you serve the mission and the purpose, everything, it sounds like a cliche to people say in business, but it's very true. I mean, Money Talk with Melanie started out as kind of a hobby and turned into a business. Like, just
right.
Because it just happened. Like, it started to be like, okay, you need to charge money for this. And people were asking, well, how much would it cost for me to do this? How much would it cost for me to, for you to advertise my business on your show? And when someone first approached me about it, I was like, huh? I don't really...
Well, that's the thing that gets confusing for people, right? Because when we do something you're so passionate about, I would do what I do for the love of doing it.
Right.
I would if I didn't need money, right? But money is how we exchange things, and we exchange value. So that's a problem that solopreneurs have quite often, right? Is how do I go from doing what I'm passionate and love to do, what I really want to do to give to people, and how do I reconcile that with my need for money and to value myself at the level that I deserve? right? And what is that? That goes back to the self-concept conversation we were having earlier, which is, do you value yourself enough to ask people to pay for what you give?
Right.
And we have to. That's the nature of our culture. That's the structure of our society.
Very true. That is very true. And it certainly did. I started out as a radio show, and then I was like, you know what? Why don't I get licensed to do this? Because since, people were asking me, this is literally how it happened. People started asking me other questions and financial advice. And I was approached by a company about becoming a professional. And that's how it happened. It literally happened in like the wrong order. Like I had the show first because I had the education and apparently the charisma to do media, and then someone heard my show and said, why don't you get licensed to do this professionally since you already do it, and why don't you make more money doing it professionally? And I was like, I would say grand idea.
It became that easy for you because you were so on purpose with what you're meant to do, which is to reach people, to provide a platform for people to grow themselves and to be able to heal this money conversation in the world that is so destructive. That we have so much energy around money, positive, negative, shame, all kinds of stuff around it. And you're here on purpose.
It's
true. That's when it becomes easy. Doors open.
True. Super easy. And to just, I'm so fortunate in that I get to marry all the things that I'm passionate about, technology, money, politics, policy, like all in one forum, and people actually listen to me. My students, I teach financial literacy also. At the high school level, and when I tell my students that I have a show and I get to talk to economists and entrepreneurs like yourself, and they actually see that it's real, and one of my students was like, oh my gosh, you have so many downloads on iTunes. I was like, yeah, it's a real show, dude. Like, what?
That's like healing the world, right? You're teaching people something so important. You're healing the world around this. It's so important.
It is, and it's very exciting. So listen, tell the audience how they can reach out to you. Is there anything that you're offering right now that you'd like to tell the audience about?
I would. I would love to give everybody a chance to 10x their business results right now and to build a 2019 roadmap that is going to take them to where they want to go, beyond even, if they follow this program. So I'm offering that a complimentary call just to mention the show, and we will create that strategic roadmap that you need for 2019. And if you're a part of the show and we want to take it to the next level, my Business Coaching Academy that I have is an online platform, and I get $297 a month for that, and includes group coaching for an additional $500 a month, and I would give that to your audience for $97 a month, or for $997, a $10,000 package.
Excellent.
So that's what I want to offer up to the clients, to the audience. And yes, and they can take a look at my book, The Entrepreneur's Essential Roadmap, the bestseller on Amazon, and ChristinePerakis.com.
I am actually.
We can put that URL in the website.
Yep, I am actually posting all of your links in the Facey chat, and I want to. I'm actually doing it for two reasons. I want to make sure that I remember to put it in the podcast when I post that as well. I wanted to make sure that I did that, and make sure you email me that offer, because I want to make sure that the listeners know. What I usually do is just mention that there's an offer if they listen to the show.
Right. Well, I'll just make it easy, because that's too complicated to have to figure out where in the show that was discussed.
Right. Oh, that's true. That is very true. That's true. And
I just want to finish with this, because I know we're running out of time.
Sure.
There is a moment when I was finally getting my rescue, right? I was getting off the island and back into, land of plenty, civilization. And I was sitting on the dock and waiting for the ferry to come to get me off onto the continental United States. And I pulled out my ukulele and was just playing music, feeling so torn about leaving and what I experienced. And this double rainbow came out. And it was such an amazing moment. Like, I'm sitting under the double rainbow, playing music, getting my, my ship is coming in. And
I love it.
I knew I was going to be okay. And that's what people will get when they know they're going to be okay, when they've got a plan for the future, when they have a roadmap that they understand, that's crystal clear, and that's totally aligned, that they can share in the world. That will be a game changer for them, and you can picture that day coming.
Certainly can. I love it. Thank you so much for being on the show today. You did a fantastic job.
Thank you so much, Melanie. It's been a pleasure. I hope everybody has a fantastic 2019, and if there's anything I can do for your listeners to help them get there, I'm here.
Absolutely, absolutely. That was Christine Perakis, Esquire, from Christine Perakis Global. Fantastic guest that I met at the National Publicity Summit in Manhattan. Creating a record-breaking year for your business in 2019. Fantastic advice. Check out all the links I posted in the Facey chat. BusinessBreakthroughPro.com. I want to make sure I say all of them. ChristinePerakis.com. That's Christine, ChristineE, Perakis, Perakis.com. And then finally, CoachingProsperity.com. Check out all those links. She is a fantastic business coach and just a fantastic guest. Thank you so much for all your information. We appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Melanie. Have a great rest of the holiday weekend, everybody.
Thank you. You too. You are listening to Money Talk with Melanie. I'm your business diva, Melanie Collette. That was hour 1. Stay tuned for hour 2, which will feature Rod Wallace, Ph.D. He's going to talk to us about drowning in potential, how American society can survive digital technology. I want to thank everybody in the Facey chat who's in there right now. Thank everybody who's listening to SHR Media. We will be right back in a few moments.
Making a living can be tough these days with so many jobs going overseas. If you love
Melanie, are you still there?
and want job security, you can become a tax specialist with an amazing 6-month tax course from Tax Mama. Operate your own tax practice locally or anywhere in the world where there are American taxpayers. It's a great way to write off your trips to visit family for months at a time. Everything you need to pass the IRS 3 special enrollment examinations is included in this course. Visit irsexams.school, and if you need more than 6 months, that's okay. Take your time. You're in the course until you pass the exams or until you unsubscribe and reject Tax Mama's emails.
Right now, you can get the credit you deserve. Just visit MrCreditRepair.biz. Let their expert credit repair specialist remove late payments, charge-offs, collections, even old bankruptcies fast and easy. That's MrCreditRepair.biz. Why go anyplace else? Increase your credit score today. At Mr. Credit, you always get a quality service, all at our everyday discounted price. Stop getting turned down for cars, credit cards, or even new homes. Visit MrCreditRepair.biz today. That's MrCreditRepair.biz. Your credit repair is our #1 priority.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
Hey, this is Michael Wright.
And I'm Shannon Wright.
Join us for The Right Way with Shannon and Mike, Monday through Thursday from 7 to 9 a.m. right here on SHR Media.
Why are they joining us?
For fun things like sports, politics,
Oh, maybe some news and entertainment?
and all kinds of other things.
Money and recipes and events? All kinds of stuff.
Yeah, so join us Monday through Thursday, 7 to 9 a.m. here on SHRmedia.com.
From a public locker inside a dilapidated Long Island rail station comes a show designed to piss off liberals using truth, facts, and ridicule. The Lid Radio Show, featuring the conservative voice from the People's Republic of New York, the Lid himself, Jeff Dunnett. Tune in every Wednesday at 2 p.m. Eastern, 11 a.m. Pacific on the SHR Media Network. Go to shrmedia.com and Lid Radio. We fight for the truth, justice, and a good kosher T-bone. If you don't listen, Hillary Clinton might sneak into your bedroom in her housecoat late at night and blame you for her election loss. It's the Lid Radio Show with Jeff Dunitz.
Hey girls, Carry Girl Gear is here. More and more women every day are concealed carrying, participating in competitive shooting, and getting firearms training. It's not a boys' club anymore, and we don't have to shop in their stores anymore either. Finally, a cool and unique clothing line just for women. Dope tees and hats for the patriotic, concealed carry, and 2A girl. So what are you waiting for? Go check out carrygirlgear.com today.
It's your business diva here, Melanie Collette. I am inviting you to a front row seat as I discuss some of the most intriguing details of wealth and finance with today's movers and shakers in the world of business. Listen in and discover financial truths on a global, domestic, and household scale. Uncover topics that will impact your wallet today and in the future. Money Talk with Melanie airs Monday through Friday, 5 p.m. East, 2 p.m. West, right here on SHR Media and High Plains Pundit Talk Radio. You can't afford to miss it.
New show on the SHR Media Network, Sackheads Against Tyranny. On shrmedia.com. Go there quick like a bunny, 11 p.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. Pacific every Wednesday. Live and direct on the SHR Media Network. shrmedia.com. Be there.
When dirty politicians, shadow governments, and deceptive Islam blind the world with fake stream media smoke, their only fear is one man with a cane. I'm Dave Milton. Join me through shrmedia.com, highplainstalkradio.com, and the Western Free Radio Network at Spreaker, YouTube, and iTunes for a different perspective weekly on the Unpleasant Blind Guy. And catch me on Jeff Mitchell's EDL Radio on blogtalkradio.com. There's no surrender ever, because truth is not always pleasant.
Broadcasting behind enemy lines in occupied California, a mere 2 miles from the state capital, the bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon Radio Show can be heard every Tuesday and Thursday night at 8 p.m. Pacific and 11 p.m. Eastern, only on the SHR Media Network. Go to shrmedia.com to listen. You can also watch on the SHR Media Facebook page and the SHR Media YouTube channel. No goldfish were abused in the making of this ad. Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
And good evening once again, and welcome back to Money Talk with Melanie. We are entering the second hour. I hope you enjoyed the first hour with Christine Perakis, Esquire. She talked to us about creating a record-breaking year for your business in 2019. So if you missed it, go back and listen to it. It was pretty good stuff that she had to offer. I met her at the National Publicity Summit in Manhattan about a month ago, which in Manhattan, you know, I keep forgetting that my show is worldwide, and I actually, when I look at the demos, I have listeners all over the world, and I'm grateful for them. So I should probably mention that Manhattan is in New York. Manhattan is in New York, as in New York City, although I think everyone knows where Manhattan is, right? But that's where I met her, and my next guest as well, Rod Wallace, Ph.D., very excited to have him on the show. He's going to talk to us about drowning in potential, how American society can survive digital technology. Now, I found this to, of course, be an interesting topic. My audience knows this well about me, that I'm a really pro-techie chick. I'm a bit of a tech freak. I teach it. I love it. I use it. as much as possible. And even though my cybersecurity expert tells me it's a very bad thing, hello, Andy in the Facey chat. I even love by the way, it's an Amazon Echo. Can I just say this? Like, I'm also a technology snob. I need to address a couple of things. Okay, when you're on Twitter, you are tweeting. You're not twittering. You're tweeting. Okay? Can we get that out of the way? And also, your Amazon Echo has a prompt, which is Alexa. It's not an Alexa. It's an Amazon Echo. People are like, I have an Alexa. No, you don't. You have an Amazon Echo, and the prompt is Alexa. Just like my technology snob in me. Like, even on the news, when they talk about the Amazon Echo, they call it an Alexa. And I'm like, it's not an Alexa. It's an Amazon Echo. Stop calling it that. And stop saying twittering. It's tweeted. Stop. You're making me crazy. Okay. That's just my, technology OCD kicking in. I'm sorry. I just had to go there, people. I apologize. For all of you people, you should know this. So now, you can sound like you're tech savvy. When you're talking about Twitter, you can say, I tweeted the other day, or did you see the president's tweet? Not did you see his Twitter? No, that's not what we're saying. We're saying, did you see the tweet? Okay, I'm done. Getting off my soapbox about that. And it's an Amazon Echo, not an Alexa. Anywho, my guest today is Rod. My guest for the second hour. Oh, goodness gracious. Doug in the Facey chat says it's an NSA listening device you pay for. Thank you, Doug. Doug and Mike Fitzpatrick. Yeah, but guess what? If somebody comes in and takes the business diva out, they will have a record of who took me out, so you guys can prosecute him and send him to the gas chamber or whatever. So there's a plus side, and me and Mike Fitzpatrick, my cybersecurity expert from NCX Group, we're going to chat about that a little bit. As we talk about cybersecurity in business, we are going to talk about that in the open when he's here on the 30th, which is next week. So, but my next guest is Rod Wallace, Ph.D. I am excited to talk to him about technology, and I like to talk about the not so positive parts of technology, which there are some downsides to the technology. So I'm looking forward to talking to him. Without further ado, Rod Wallace, Ph.D., how are you?
Hey, Melanie, I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on.
Oh, you're very welcome. I apologize for not picking up. It said it came through as the Marriott, and I was like, the Marriott in D.C.? And I stay in D.C. a lot. I'm like, what did I leave there? What did I do? That's what
You're back. No. I'm here. I wanted to make sure that we had a good landline, and the Marriott here in Washington, D.C. was exactly where I needed to come to get it for you.
Oh, sure, yes. I've been there many times. I'm politically active, and I find myself in the D.C. area quite often. I am familiar with that Marriott. So when I saw it, I was like, did I leave something there the last time? Why are they calling me? Or I thought it was a promotional call, which I never give this number out for. So I was kind of wondering, what happened. But thanks to the magic of Google Voice, I was able to read your voicemail and and see that it was you. So, yes.
If we call it Alexa, then we get to think of it as a friend of ours, and that's just much more human. And it makes this big evil thing called Amazon into a human that we can talk to and have conversations with and feel much more comfortable with ourselves for doing it.
You too, Dr. Rod. You too.
Oh yeah, you bet, man.
Can I call you Dr. Rod? I didn't ask if I could.
Sure, call me whatever works for you.
Okay. My cybersecurity expert just warns me about the perils of my Amazon Echo all the time, but I don't listen, and also about Google as well.
You bet.
I'm like, I know Google, don't be evil. Meanwhile, I have 100 gigs of storage. I'm trying, but I'm addicted now. I need rehab.
We have to use this stuff. I mean, this is part of our life. This is our society right now. If we don't use it, it's like, we're like, you might as well be on an island all by ourselves. It no longer works for us to not use this stuff.
It's true. It's very true, and we need some like decent competition of some sort, but. Who's going to do it? Because Google's paying off both sides of the political aisle, and we know that's where most of the stuff happens. So it's a problem.
Yeah, no, I mean, we just have to recognize that the leaders of these companies are the royalty in the United States right now. And we just think about them as leading our society in the direction that they recognize and that they realize that they want us to go in, and we'll probably be a lot better off.
That is true, but that's a reality that people don't want to, like, at least I acknowledge that, like, I know. I don't know if that makes it worse because I'm kind of supposed to know better, but, I legitimately know better, and I do it anyway. But I think, for example, I switched to DuckDuckGo as my browser. I'm going to keep it real with you. DuckDuckGo is okay, but it's not Google. It just isn't.
We just really can't do without these things, and the real challenge is that it's not just a direct thing. That we have all these direct things that are problems. That face to face and our real interactions with people are breaking down, and we are losing the real connections with those people that we want to have closest in our lives. And that is one of the direct problems with Siri and with Facebook and some of the other things. But then we have all these indirect problems as well, that our life is just way more complex than it was 50 years ago. And how do we deal with that, which leads to a whole other set of problems on top of the first set?
It does. And I won't. I can't argue with that. And, coincidentally, I teach in the same high school that I attended many moons ago. But it gives me, the school is exactly the same. Like, it hasn't really expanded or anything like that. Like, it's pretty much the same. And so it reminds me every day when I'm there, like, what used to be and what is now. Like, I can literally see it from a visual standpoint. And it's kind of creepy to see how we've progressed, but then not progressed at the same time. One of the things that we talked about is how, and in the information you sent me, you said that 60% of the American economy, the GDP, which is referred to as the GDP, you hear that all the time, the gross domestic product, is dedicated to industries that are failing to deliver the basics. And I think we couldn't agree more. Healthcare, education, finance, food, housing, and more. Healthcare, I'm a public school teacher. I complain about the public school system constantly, like all the time. I'm tenured, though, so I can do that. But I complain about it all the time because I do believe it's not doing its job. I think anybody who has health care, which is everyone, understands that they're being underserved in some kind of way. And what made you draw that conclusion, even though we have all this technology?
Well, I went systematically through American culture and our government and our economy, and I just looked at a number of industries one at a time and to try and understand what was going on. And it really threw me because initially I was expecting, there's problems in our world. We all know that. But what really blew me away is that every single industry that I looked at, one after another, was failing. I mean, education is one where a teacher that I was doing some research with sent me some information. I was like, well, help me understand what's going on in our educational system, because since 1970, the cost of American education, public school before college, and then, of course, the cost of college, have increased about 107, 110% per year. And it's both across the board and without any achievable, measurable outcomes. And this teacher that I was talking to, she said, look, she teaches first grade. She's like, every other week she has 4 kids who are behind grade level for first grade, and they have to take a standardized test. I was like, well, tell me about that test. And she said, look, every other week she has to take these first grade, these 6-year-olds who are behind grade level, and they have to go to the computer, and they have to key in a 9-digit code for the school ID, a 5-digit code for the test ID, and a 4-digit code for their own personal identification.
That sounds right.
Yeah, you bet. And these are for the 6-year-olds who are, behind grade level. And I just think, I'm sure that the rest of the class is sitting back very quietly, and while these kids are doing this. No, they're not. These are first graders, and it's probably taking a half hour every other week. And I'm sure there's some value to it to a certain degree for those specific 4 kids who are behind grade level, but you get that testing, and then you get all the other testing, and we're layering all of this stuff on top of each other, and without really realizing everything else that is on top of the teachers. And so you end up with, what is the real situation? That you get, everyone's getting paid, but Raheem still can't read? It's absurd that we have this. And it's in education, it's in healthcare, where you can think about, 86-year-old Betty's been in New York Central Hospital for 3 hours, and she's sitting under a sheet shivering because all these well-educated people with amazing technology who went into healthcare because they care, but they're so busy that they don't realize that there's this 86-year-old woman on the side of the corridor just sitting there shivering. And, over and over again, walk into a supermarket and just stop for a second. You walk into a supermarket and just look around. It is amazing. I mean, people who come to the United States from outside, they're like, oh my gosh, your supermarkets are just brilliant. Because there's 47,000 foods in the average American supermarket. It's spectacular, but they don't nourish us.
It's true. I was thinking I saw a commercial. I don't know if anyone else has seen this commercial, but I saw a commercial for a wine cork or a wine opener where you stick it goes down into the wine, into the cork, and you can pour the wine, and then you can re-cork it so that the wine stays fresh. Now, that as a wine connoisseur myself, it was like, that sounds fabulous. And then I thought to myself, wow, we're really doing well in society. I mean, the commercial for it is there's nothing better than that first sip of wine, blah, blah, blah. But, God forbid I have to sip day-old wine. And I'm like, what? You know what I mean? And I'm thinking to myself, wow, so this is where we are in America. We actually legitimately have time to complain about our wine not being as fresh as it was the first time we opened the bottle. I just feel like there's kids who are starving, and we have a product. There's probably people all over the world who are going to get that product for $50 or whatever it is. It's kind of ridiculous when you think about it.
It's beyond ridiculous. Well,
right.
It's spectacular that we have the most amazing technology ever right now, and we can optimize that first sip of wine, Melanie, that is just slightly off for you. I know that there are probably a half dozen people who can make it better for you.
Right.
Because we have specialists in everything, and every little part of the world is getting optimized in an amazing way. And it really is spectacular. I mean, even Siri, just the technology of being able to, more or less, understand what we're telling it, and sometimes at least giving us information that we want, that's awesome.
Sometimes I'm like, Siri, do I have an accent? What is your problem?
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah, well, the wine probably helps with that, I'm sure.
That's probably true. And then, then I feel like I'm not speaking... She makes you feel like you're not speaking English properly, and perhaps I should be enunciating better and have a better command of the English language. Her and Alexa are like little English teachers, really. They're like, what?
They are, you bet. They teach us when we are wrong with our own language, you bet.
Exactly. I'm like, okay, Siri, I did not say that clearly enough. My apologies. Now I'm apologizing to a robot. Wonderful.
Yeah.
It's not a good deal. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, it's just, the real problem is not the technology itself. It's that we're becoming so specialized and so knowledgeable about all these little niche things, and we're trying to optimize that first sip of wine when the really big picture questions that we all need to work together on to fix, those are getting messed up again and again and again.
And why is that in your estimation? Like, what is it that we're ignoring? How do we keep messing it up? Like, I think we all probably agree that, like, the education system the public education system definitely needs some fixing. The healthcare system definitely needs some fixing. And I feel like a lot of us even know, like, what needs to be done, but it's not getting done. What do you attribute that to?
A lot of this has to do with the fact that everyone is simultaneously trying to fix something. Just to fix it. I mean, we got thousands of people. So pretend that you and I are, we're going to make a painting together, and we're going to, put blindfolds on, but just use one canvas, and we're going to start painting. And I have, like, some vision of, some modernist art of, like, some antelopes running across the plains, and you at the same time are trying to draw on the same canvas, but you're trying to draw, some elegant thing of a family sitting down at dinner, and it doesn't work. It ends up with this nasty, nasty thing because we're conflicting with one another, and it's just not aligned. And in a lot of ways, that's what's happening. A friend of mine was just talking about how she was helping someone get funding for college, and she has lots of different this woman has lots of different opportunity to get funding for college, but they're all over the internet with $200 here and $800 here and $455 there if you happen to be lucky enough to be able to apply for it. And so all of these people are well-meaning, but it's ending up a mess without getting any real benefit. And at a higher level, that's the same thing that's happening with our healthcare system. We have amazingly dedicated healthcare employees with spectacular technology, but most of them don't have any clue what each other is doing. And we're ending up at cross purposes. I mean, in education, what is even the purpose of our educational system? I don't know that many people can even answer that.
We don't have a common purpose. It's very funny that you say that. I had a guest on not too long ago that was talking about they have schools for kids who have learning challenges. And in the schools, like, for those particular kids, like supplemental schools.
Right.
And, one of the things that they said, and I've certainly experienced this as an educator, is that public schools are not there to fix the learning problems. They're there to teach a specific curriculum. No one has ever, and I've been in education for now over 20 years, in public and private school, and no one has ever articulated that point as clearly. And to your point, no one has a purpose, and no one has ever said that out loud. But if you look closely at the education system and how it operates with that particular set of students and other subsets of students, you would see that to be absolutely true, that they don't fix problems, they manage them. And I think parents think that we fix them, and we don't.
I think a lot of parents think that a school is where you drop your kid off until they become an adult, and then they're magically going to be a wonderful adult. But what exactly? And I mean, that's what some parents think. Other parents, I think, think that that schools are there just to teach a limited number of things. Other people think that schools are there to really be almost a daycare. But all of those may be the right answer. I certainly don't know what the right role is for a school, but if all these different people are creating schools, are trying to improve the schools, but towards a completely different vision, it's really, really ugly. I think about the state of Delaware, where we have, like 120,000 students, something like that. We have 19 different school districts. We have, something like 30 different private schools. We've got, parochial schools. We've got a bunch of kids that are homeschooled. And all of these different systems are being operated by different leaders who have their own vision of what schools should be doing. And each one, or many of them, are really amazing, and they're using the technology to improve things and get things better. and they're each coming up with their own ways to get to their outcome, but they're all creating a painting on the same exact canvas of the state of Delaware's kids, and the fact that they have different visions of what they're trying to create is creating a big fat mess.
No, I think you're right about that. I think you are right about that. And the thing is, like, no one, there's no one, how can I put it? There's no one place to kind of go, so to speak, where you know there's no one common place that says this is the goal of all schools. You know what I mean?
Right.
There isn't, there's nothing like that. And I don't know that we should be doing that either. You know, that's what makes it complex. Now, perhaps what we should be doing is, at least in the public school system, maybe we should be saying that there's one, federally, there's a common goal. I don't know, because then you get into, you know, the Constitution and states' rights, and, you know, you get into all that kind of stuff. So it's very, and I feel like you get into the same thing with the healthcare system and with the food system. Like, that's where it ends up going when it comes to decision makings, and then enter technology. And yikes. You know?
And it all comes down to, there's this balance that we need. On the one hand, we need competition. I mean, there are a handful of people out there who are saying, oh, the world has become so complex that we no longer need a free market. And, well, good luck trying to operate the world without competition today and without a free market, because it's never, ever going to work. It's way too complicated. Where you're finding that we're getting more progress, though, is in terms of where we have people across organizations getting clarity of what is the vision they want. And one example that has worked, you know, that's a few years into it, is the cocoa and chocolate industry. I like chocolate.
Yeah.
But one thing that they found is that, well, about 70% of the world's cocoa is grown in Western Africa, especially the Ivory Coast and Ghana. But the Ivory Coast in particular has huge, huge problems with very limited levels of education. I mean, there are farmers there where one of the Western agricultural experts who was visiting the Ivory Coast was telling me a story about this farmer. And he's had these trees that were there, and he was really limited education. He was finding that some of his trees were sick. He could recognize that, you know, that the trees are just, you know, they're dying. They're not giving any cocoa. And so he went to his village elders, and he said, well, what can we do? You know, these trees are sick. And so he did exactly what the village elder said. He tied a blue ribbon about 5 feet up off the ground around the trunk of the tree and said, well, just pray to the blue ribbon, and your trees will get better. It didn't work.
Okay. I was waiting. Does it?
Yeah.
It
didn't work. And in fact, more of his trees got sick. But this level of complete lack, and this is his profession. This is like his family is depending on this. And there's, you know, problems with child labor. There's problems with, you know, people deforesting the entirety of the cocoa trees in entire regions. Massive social issues. And the chocolate and cocoa industry said, look, we're dependent on this region, which is a mess. And there are hundreds, if not thousands, of different people who are doing their best to solve the issues, and they've been trying for generations. And they've had very limited, if any, material success. So the cocoa and chocolate industry said, look, as an industry, we are going to set a clear vision of what we want. We want to help the cocoa farmers become more prosperous, which means educated, etc. We want to make sure that social values are preserved, and we want to make sure that environment is conserved. And there's probably 10 or 12 things that need to happen. So, you know, things that will have a material difference, like giving the cocoa farmers some basic training. And the industries, the different businesses who are participating, each pledge to take some actions to help make each of these 10 or 12 things happen, to improve basically the society of 1.4 million cocoa farmers in Western Africa. And they're having a material impact. It's not easy. It's not trivial. And these folks compete with each other at the same time, in terms of, you've got the Mars bar and Nestle's Kit Kat bar, and you can buy either one at the store. But at the same time as they're competing tooth and nail with each other for our business, they're all also working together as members of the World Cocoa Foundation to help solve basic fundamental societal problems.
Interesting. That is very interesting. Now, of course, that's private sector.
You bet.
Very difficult to do that on a government level because there's conflicting interests.
There's conflicting interests, and at the end of the day, if you look, without a doubt, you're completely correct. The government right now is frozen except when corporate interests take an aligned effort in a particular direction. Our cultural institutions, wonderful. They can do some amazing things. Our churches, our synagogues, various movements are fantastic. But who is the leadership of society today? It's business. And when business takes a coherent, concerted movement in a particular direction, we move in that direction.
Well, that's true, and that's free market, and that's frankly also the argument for less government in our lives in general. That you just made the argument. I freelance write for the Horn News website, and one of the things I was tasked to do was to write an article on how many regulations had been cut in the Trump administration. Now, the first thing I had to do was figure out how many regulatory agencies we had and how many, regulations we had on the books. I thought that was going to be super easy to do, particularly since, I'm an academic. I do research all the time. It was not easy. And what I finally found out was that the government, our United States government, has no idea how many regulatory agencies we have, nor do they have an accurate count of exactly how many regulations we have. They have estimates because they are literally making regulations so quickly and so many that it's too many to count. It's too big. Now, if our government is too big, I feel like we need a memoriam of some sort to stop it. But you have all these agencies. It is insane. I was like, why can't I find a quick number on this? I should be able to go to whatever.gov and get the number, whatever it is, right?
It's spectacular. And, the thing that really amazes me is, the Food and Drug Administration, the FDA,
right,
is one that, we all know what it does, right? At its core, it's there to support farmers and maybe do some agricultural research. Well, as I was doing research for my book, Drowning in Potential, How American Society Can Survive Digital Technology, and there's a chapter on government. And it turns out that there's over 100,000 employees of the FDA right now. And some of those employees, they have a drinking game that they play where they'll get together and one person will say, okay, the FDA does this. They scare geese outside of airports so that they don't get sucked into jet engines. True or false? And if the other person who also works for the FDA gets it wrong, then, they have to drink. It's a drinking game. And there are seriously people who play that game and they get it wrong. And by the way, yes, the FDA does actually scare ducks and geese around airports. That's one of the roles that they have. And the roles that they have are just amazingly broad between all the stuff, the core stuff that you know about. They're also in charge of, animals with rabies and figuring out what to do with that. They're in charge of monitoring dog fighting. The estimate that I saw, and I don't know what you have found, Melanie, was that right now we have about 250 million constraints at the federal level on what we do and don't do. That's amazing.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it was. We make, it's something like 8,000 new regulations a year. 8,000 a year.
Right.
Ridiculous.
And each of those regulations has multiple pieces in it. You can't, wire money directly to Peru, Bolivia, or Argentina. I just made that up. But
right.
Yeah.
Well, here's what I don't understand, and I've been saying this for years now, that with technology, why is it that when we make new laws, we can't go in, like, when we pass new legislation, we can't go into the computer somewhere and say, okay, like, instead of having people battle it out in court, we can't go into the computer and say, while we're at it, we're going to put into this law, this takes away, these 10 laws. This law supersedes these 10 laws that are also associated with this new law. Like, we can't be efficient that way. It seems to me we should be able to be efficient that way. But instead, they just make new laws, and then there's some conflict, and they end up fighting it out in court, and it like goes to the Supreme Court or something. Like, to me, it just feels like that's really a dumb and inefficient way to do it.
It's a crazy system right now, but if you think about it, this is what's happening all over the place in terms of the impact of technology on society, that actually throughout human history, at least for the last 5,000 or 10,000 years, most societies that develop new technology fail to use that technology effectively to actually benefit its citizens. So what's kind of happening is that, Melanie, suppose that you and I are digging a ditch. We each have wood-handled shovels, and you tell me, look, you dig on the left and I'll dig on the right, and that works. Well, now let's suppose that all of a sudden we shift technology and we're going to switch to jackhammers. Well, jackhammers make a whole lot of noise. So even though there's nothing inherently different about the jackhammer, you can't talk to me. You have to use hand signals. And we have to change the way that we are managing how we coordinate if we want that good outcome and nobody with a bloody toe. Well, right now, the digital technology is basically creating a huge amount of noise coming into the atmosphere in terms of masses of data, masses of numbers of people that need to be involved in everything for it to be successful. And we're not able to coordinate. And that noise is meaning that we're getting up with a lot of bloody toes.
No, you're right about that. But you would think that it's funny that technology does not help that. You would think that technology would alleviate that. Like, in my mind, it seems to me that we could use technology to alleviate that situation.
Technology doesn't solve problems. People solve problems, and we solve them more effectively when we are working together. And that's one of the things that we miss, is that technology is a bunch of tools that is there to help us execute whatever system we're really trying to execute. And anytime we put in a tool without really thinking about the impact on the full system, we're going to end up screwing up our system unless we've really thought about, well, what's the new way in which we're going to collaborate? Do we need to use hand signals in order to collaborate right now? And right now we're not.
We're not. We definitely are not. And whenever I hear something new, some new conflict coming up, I'm like, well, did no one think of this? And what's really funny about that, at least from a policy perspective, in my estimation, is that, my master's is in public administration, and that's supposed to be what public administrators do, actually. Like, right. They're supposed to do. So when I learned that, I was like, someone is falling down on the job, because either no one's doing this, like no one's doing pre-program studies on whether or not this new regulatory agency is needed, and no one's doing studies on a year out whether or not this agency is productive or still needed. Like, those studies are not being done, and if they are being done, no one is taking action on them. And if I had to guess, as someone who's involved in politics, it's probably because it's not in the law that they have to. So somebody's making money, somebody's got a job that they don't want to eliminate, and it's not in the law that they have to eliminate it if it's not productive.
Well, it's even more than that, just because the world is too complex for government to understand right now. I think about, I was living in Europe, and I was working in the food industry, and one of the technologists said, hey, we found 3 monochlorpropane-diol esters in baby food. And I was like, what? And they're like, no, this is really serious. And, we ended up with this big, long conversation between, the makers of the baby food, and then the regulators came in and said, oh my gosh, you have esters in, so should we stop and ban all the esters? No, you can't ban all esters. Esters are different than both. And as we've learned so much about technology and what we can do, government can't understand that. Maybe in the 18th century, 19th century, even the 20th century, government could really understand what was going on. But right now, the things that all of our people in business are doing is so complicated that you have to be deep in it. And government isn't. And they can't be.
No, they can't be. But they need...
Exactly, Melanie. I think you just summarized it perfectly.
I summarized it all in one, grunt, didn't I? I have to go to a quick break, but when we come back, we're gonna start talking about how it might be possible, maybe, for leadership to do that. And you already described it being done in one industry, but perhaps we can talk about how it can be done in other industries. Is there anything as a people we can do to encourage that direction? Because I think you're right. If we're all, going in different directions, how can we, improve things? I don't think that we can. So I'd love to talk about that on the other side of the break.
You betcha.
All right, absolutely. You're listening to Money Talk with Melanie. I'm your business diva, Melanie Collette. My guest this hour is Rod Wallace, Ph.D. I've nicknamed him Dr. Rod today. He's allowing me to do that. I really do appreciate it. So great information today. We're discussing drowning in potential, how American society can survive digital technology. And if you missed it, if you guys are in the Facey chat, I did post a link to where you can purchase that book on Amazon. You should definitely check it out. We'll be back in a few moments.
Right now, you can get the credit you deserve. Just visit MrCreditRepair.biz. Let their expert credit repair specialists remove late payments, charge-offs, collections, even old bankruptcies, fast and easy. That's MrCreditRepair.biz. Why go anyplace else? Increase your credit score today. At Mr. Credit, you always get a quality service, all at an everyday discount price. Stop getting turned down for cars, credit cards, or even new homes. Visit MrCreditRepair.biz today. That's MrCreditRepair.biz. Your credit repair is our #1 priority.
Making a living can be tough these days with so many jobs going overseas. If you love numbers and puzzles and want job security, you can become a tax specialist with an amazing 6-month tax course from Tax Mama. Operate your own tax practice locally or anywhere in the world where there are American taxpayers. It's a great way to write off your trips to visit family for months at a time. Everything you need to pass the IRS 3 special enrollment examinations is included in this course. Visit irsexams.school. And if you need more than 6 months, that's okay. Take your time. You're in the course until you pass the exams or until you unsubscribe and reject Tax Mama's emails.
In the American Dictionary of the English Language, Noah Webster 1828 edition, the meaning of the word race is defined as a series of descendants, indefinitely. Thus, all mankind are called the race of Adam. Hello, I'm Ron Edwards. On today's page from the Edwards Notebook, the word racist means one who hates another of a different race or skin color because of their difference in appearance, place of origin, or existence. Thus, when I hear President Donald Trump espouse the need to stop illegal border crossers from coming into our republic and systematically wreaking havoc, it never occurred to me that he is racist or hates non-white people. The truth is, the president is seeking to do what every homeowner does daily to protect the entryway into our country and protect us from harm and preserve our American republic. The United States has been accepting far too many legal immigrants and illegal border crossers, thus endangering the unique, exceptional nation status of our beloved USA. Of course, leftist Democrats label those who actually seek to protect our sovereignty as racist bigots. But actually, it is they who are the bigoted ones against America and are doing the bidding of George Soros to destroy America from within via illegal border crossers. I'm Ron Edwards. Don't miss the Ron Edwards Experience Fridays at 4 p.m. Eastern, 1 p.m. Pacific on AmericaMatters.us and Sunday midnights on Talk America Radio.
Sponsored by the Tri-County Liberty Coalition.
Welcome back. You're listening to Money Talk with Melanie. I'm your business diva, Melanie Collette. My guest the second hour is Dr. Rod Wallace, Ph.D. He's talking to us today about drowning in potential, how American society can survive digital technology. And we're discussing how while technology has made some things easier, it has also made some things, many things actually, very complex from a more broad perspective. And I never attributed that to technology. I, of course, attributed that to people just being stinky. But I think, just stinky at their jobs. Just saying. But I think there's some truth to what Dr. Rod is saying here about that, and that's what we are discussing. So. You talked about how the cocoa industry managed to be able to do this and that it's worked well for that private industry, for the companies that have chosen to participate. Before we actually move on to how other industries might be able to do it and maybe even do it in the public sector, is there any data on how companies who chose not to be a part of the, what did you say, the World Cocoa Organization?
World Cocoa Foundation.
World Cocoa Foundation?
It's well over 90% of the industry right now.
Okay.
So all of the major players are participants, and I don't know the handful that are not. What's really going on with them.
That makes sense. Whenever I'm always just like super suspicious of those kind of things. Like, if it's a probably isn't really such thing as like a mom and pop cocoa farm, right? Like there's.
There is. There are.
Are there?
A lot of those. A lot of the cocoa and like the chocolate bars that you'll find, just Guatemalan chocolate. Well, I mean, there's like almost no cocoa grown in Guatemala, and so if there's like a special chocolate bar that's just from them, it's like some niche. Most frequently, it's some niche little side stream that's going on from Guatemala direct to your local. 5 and dime store. So yeah, there's a lot of niche companies that are out there. Most of those, or many of those, are also participating because if they really, going to sell expensive chocolate, well, they want to do the right thing as well. But
that makes sense. Well, no, I was just thinking in terms of like, I wonder how much it costs to be a part of that organization, whether or not all the companies that are involved in the industry could actually afford to be a part of the organization, like what was required. That's the thought that was on my mind, and whether or not, because of whatever expense or criteria or regulation was involved with that organization, whether or not some businesses just could not be involved, if that makes any sense.
It does make a lot of sense. However, most of the money that is spent in Western Africa actually is spent by the companies themselves. Only, I know, for example, the Cargill Corporation, that they publish their books about how much they're spending in this area, and I think it was over 20 million euros, so well over $20 million is being spent on this effort in Western Africa, and a way less than $1 million is being spent on the World Cocoa Foundation itself. This is primarily private companies that are finding it attractive to do things that are good for society, because when you solve a problem, you create value, and you want some of that value to go to your shareholders, and some of the rest of that value goes to society.
That's very true. Now, is there any incentive, or are there too many conflicts? Do you think it's easier to do this kind of thing when the industry is primarily abroad than it is to do here in the United States, just simply because, we tend to be over-regulated in every industry. So,
the regulation is a mess. In the United States, as we've talked about.
Right.
But, I mean, I think it's probably best that I just summarize saying, the Ivory Coast government is not some pristine, wonderful thing that helps, their society end up in a wonderful, positive place.
Listen, that's what I was getting at. That's what I was low-key kind of trying to say, but...
Yeah. So, there's a lot of hurdles no matter where you're going to go about doing good and trying to run your own business. And without a doubt, the United States still remains a wonderful place to run a business relative to most places you could be in the world. And we can definitely do types of initiatives that will benefit shareholders and society at the same time. I'm working now with a group focused on extending the family is the name of the initiative. And what they're trying to do is reduce the gap between the African American community and corporate America.
Amen.
Yeah, and what they're saying is that a significant portion of this problem is about cultural misunderstanding. Look, that we have many different cultures across the United States, and yes, there are many subcultures within the African American community, but still there is an African American community that is different than the one that I grew up in.
And frankly the one that I grew up in.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm African American, and you try to explain this to people, and they don't. A lot of people don't. From a government perspective, they certainly don't understand this. They lump all African Americans in together, and I try to explain that the African American woman who, my stylist, who's from Senegal, who may have grown up in the United States, but her family is from Senegal. They've had a different experience than I had growing up in Cape May, New Jersey.
Right.
So did the African American girl or woman who grew up in Southside Detroit. So she had a different experience than I did growing up in Cape May. All cultural, but we're all brown. But you can't. But the government tends to treat us the same, and that's a problem.
It's a huge problem. And what this initiative that we're working on, Extending the Family, and that's on hsrn.com, is about trying to say, look, if you want to bridge the cultural divide and really get to some understanding of what, Melanie, you're saying about there's different cultures within the African American community, there is one similarity. You guys have the same skin color, and that's about it. And yet there's differences of experience that from people who have different color skin is saying, well, how can you get into the African American community? One of the strongest places is on the historically black college and university campuses. And, I've gone to a couple of the football games at the HBCU, and they're awesome. They're wonderful football games, but it feels different. When I look around, it's like, oh, yeah, there's a few other white people in the crowd, but there's not a lot. And it gives you a different cultural perspective. The conversations that you have tend to be a little bit different. It gives you an idea of, gee, you can grow up in the United States and have a different experience than the one that whatever it is that you did. And so this initiative is saying, let's bring representatives of corporate America into the HBCU campuses, particularly around athletic events, and bring some further cultural events around that, and just get some quality conversation going about what is there, so that benefit for companies is better, deeper understanding that can improve recruiting, can improve marketing, can improve selling of their products into the African American community. While the African American community gets some funding for the schools and the education, they get better and broader opportunities for recruitment, etc.
No, I think you're right about that, and I've always also thought though that you find more commonalities among socioeconomic classes than you do among color, and I really wish that when we had all these initiatives that we would do it that way, because I would guarantee you that poor African American communities and poor white communities have a lot more in common. So if you You understand what I'm saying? So if you
definitely.
If you use geographic location and economic levels, for lack of a better expression, rather than race as your demographic, I think we would be a lot more productive in reaching people, in my opinion. Because I think, like I said, I think the groups are larger that way, and I think the issues, even if you live in different areas, are more common.
I think that there's a lot to say for your perspective, that doing things according to socioeconomic class, particularly in the United States today, where socioeconomic class is getting so different between the experiences of the people with the greatest amount of wealth and the least, and just the way that we view the world. At the same point, I think that you can get to some of the same outcomes when you say, well, look, if you want to get an understanding of the multitude of experiences and those red threads that have similarities across the African American community, you want to get them. Maybe you can get them in black churches, which is one subset of the African American community.
Yep.
But where you can really get it also is at the historically black colleges and universities,
yes.
many of which are only 60, 70% black.
Right.
But they still have this thread of African American cultures which have blended together, leading to something that is distinct and different from downtown Dallas or Wilmington, Delaware.
For sure. Absolutely. I'm in New Jersey. I don't know if you knew that or not, but I'm in New Jersey, and I lived in Philly for a while, so I'm very familiar with that area. With Wilmington, and actually, I love Dallas. Dallas is fantastic too. It's a beautiful place. We are almost done. I can't believe how quickly that went by. Where can we reach you? Where can we buy your book? I did post the link to the Amazon link. Is there anywhere else we can purchase your book, and any way else we can meet you?
Yep, you can go ahead and. On Amazon is the easiest place to find me, wherever it is. So it is, Drowning in Potential, How American Society Can Survive Digital Technology. You can also reach me at rodwallacephd.com. That's rodwallacephd.com. I have a weekly email that's sent out and a lot of information up there for you. So that's right.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Great information. Really great conversation. I'm so glad that I had you on the show.
Thanks a lot, Melanie. I've really enjoyed the past hour talking with you.
I did too. I posted the link to your website in the Facey chat, just so you know. And are you on Facebook at all? Because I couldn't find you.
I've just started out on Facebook from a professional perspective, so I'm there, but barely.
Twitter?
Even less than Facebook.
Okay, well, I will send you the link to your podcast via email. Because I did look for you, but I couldn't find you. But I will send you the link via email, just so you have it.
You betcha.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
All right, I loved it, Melanie. Thanks
Absolutely, so did I. You're listening to Money Talk with Melanie. I'm your business diva, Melanie Collette. That was my guest for the second hour, Rod Wallace, Ph.D. Dr. Rod talked to us about his book, Drowning in Potential, How American Society Can Survive Digital Technology. Really good conversation. I thought, anyway, it was very interesting. The first hour, if you missed it, I had Christine Perakis, Esquire, talk to us about how we can create record-breaking business in 2019. Excellent conversation as well. I want to thank everybody in the Facey chat, all your good comments and questions. You guys completely rock. Everyone out there in SHR Media Land, thank you so much. If you downloaded this as a podcast via iTunes, thank you. And on all the other platforms in which you can find Money Talk with Melanie, because I am indeed everywhere. You cannot escape. If you would like, you can follow me on Twitter at Money Talk Mel or at NJGOT. Let me say that again, at NJGOP Diva. And if you want, I do have a website. It's just not as dynamic as I would like it to be just yet, but there is a moneytalkwithmelanie.com where you can get all of the archived Money Talk with Melanie shows and get more information about my sponsors, the Tax Mama and Mr. Credit Repair.biz. Thank you so very, very much for listening. Have a fantastic weekend. And remember, all of this is very important because after all, it's your money. Have a great weekend.